Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the semiconductor gold rush. It's this absolute explosion in demand for processing power, and it's all being fueled by the artificial intelligence revolution.
You know, they always say that in a gold rush, the surest money isn't in digging for gold, it's in selling the picks and shovels. Well, for AI, the essential tools are these incredibly powerful semiconductor chips, and just a few key players are making almost all of them. This is where the smart money is going, and it's exactly what we're going to break down today.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll set the stage for this massive demand. Then, we'll compare these three giants with some hard data. After that, we'll break down the investment case for each one: Nvidia, AMD, and Intel. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with how you might want to think about your own strategy.
So the whole story here really starts with something simple but incredibly powerful: a massive global thirst for faster, smarter chips. Just think about it for a second. Every single time you use a tool like ChatGPT, you're tapping into a data center that's packed with thousands of these powerful processors, all humming along together. That right there, that's the engine driving this entire boom.
Okay, so with that backdrop, how do these three companies actually stack up against each other? Let's take a look at what the forecasts are telling us about this race heading into 2026.
Wow, okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at the sheer scale of Nvidia's projected revenue. I mean, they're not just leading, they're expected to leave their competitors in the dust. We're talking forecasts of over $110 billion. That's more than double what they did in 2023, and it absolutely dwarfs what AMD is projected to bring in. And that crazy revenue projection, well, it makes perfect sense when you see this. In the discrete graphics card market, which is the absolute engine of AI, Nvidia's dominance is just undeniable. They've got over 3/4 of the entire market. This is their kingdom, plain and simple.
But okay, let's switch gears to the CPU market, because this paints a very different picture. Here, the old giant, Intel, is still on top. But look at AMD. They have clawed their way to a really significant 35%. And that is a huge deal, especially in the server market. Why? Because that's where the real money is. The margins are way, way higher than in consumer PC. And this table right here, it brilliantly illustrates how Wall Street is thinking about the future of these companies. You see the strong, unified confidence in both Nvidia and AMD. That's what that buy consensus means. Intel, on the other hand, with its mixed rating, well, it's pretty clear the street views it as a more speculative, high-risk, high-reward kind of turnaround play.
So first up, let's explore the investment case for the current, and let's be honest, the undisputed market leader, Nvidia. The bull case for Nvidia is incredibly straightforward. The company has built this powerful ecosystem, and pretty much everyone, from tiny startups to the biggest tech giants on the planet, is relying on their technology to power their AI ambitions.
So here's the bottom line for investors. You're betting on a deep competitive advantage. That CUDA software platform is like a fortress that's incredibly hard for anyone else to replicate. You're betting on them being at the center of this multi-trillion-dollar data center boom. And, of course, you're betting on their absolutely explosive financial growth. It's staggering.
Okay, now let's pivot to the challenger, AMD. They've got a completely different, but you could argue an equally compelling story that's all about growth and value.
AMD's whole narrative is that of a formidable competitor that's just rapidly gaining ground on so many fronts. And it's not just about being a cheaper alternative anymore, no way. AMD is now competing head-to-head on performance and efficiency, and they're winning over customers looking for a more balanced option. For AMD, the real appeal is its vast upside. When you have less market share, you just have more room to grow, right? Plus, their EPYC server chips are famous for being super energy efficient, and trust me, that is a huge deal for data centers where electricity bills can run into the millions of dollars a year. All right, and finally, what's the investment case for the industry's legacy giant? What's the story behind the Intel bet?
So investing in Intel is fundamentally different from the other two. This is a bet on a massive industrial comeback. It's a bet on this huge strategic pivot to not just design chips, but to actually manufacture them for the entire world. So look, if you're an investor with a taste for adventure and maybe a bit of a long-term horizon, Intel could be the ultimate turnaround play. They are pouring billions into becoming a global foundry, and hey, if they pull it off, the rewards for patient investors could be absolutely massive. So, we've just looked at three very, very distinct stories.
With all that information, how should an investor even begin to approach a decision? First, and this is absolutely critical, you have to understand that this entire industry moves in waves. It's a cycle. A period of intense demand and high profits is almost always followed by a glut of supply and falling prices. Understanding the cycle is so key to timing your entry. The really savvy investors, they don't just pick a company and hope for the best. They watch for signals, just like these. For example, you want to keep a close eye on gross margins. That's basically the percentage of money they have left after paying for what it costs to make the chips. When that number starts to recover and go up, it's a very strong sign the industry is heading into a more profitable phase.
So, ultimately, your choice might depend less on which company is technically the best, and more on which of these strategies really aligns with your own personal goals. Are you someone who's chasing momentum? Are you looking for growth at a reasonable price? Or are you that patient value investor who's betting on a big comeback? And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final thought from the analyst over at Cantor Fitzgerald. Their advice is pretty simple. Despite all the short-term cycles and the volatility, the long-term trend for the entire semiconductor sector remains incredibly powerful. The AI revolution is just getting started, and you can bet these three companies are going to be right at the heart of it. The real question is, which one of their visions for the future will you bet on? That's our explainer for today. Thanks for watching.